When I make videos, I don't read things. I want you to come with me on a journey as we discover it together. So it's not rehearsed, it's not scripted. I just speak naturally and you just join along in the ride, really. But there is something I'm going to read, and it's from when I went to Cornwall in June 2021.
We're in the car, so we are on our way now.
We'd had all COVID obviously around that time, and we were able to go away again and kind of do things compared to what it'd been like the previous summer. And I went with friends on holiday to Cornwall. I've not been to Cornwall loads of times, but I love Cornwall. And I've obviously got ancestry from Cornwall, which I've known for a long time. One of those people who was from Cornwall, or that their parents were from Cornwall, I went to their grave when I was in Australia 15 years ago. And so there was a whole connection that I had following one person from one side of the world to the other. And I'm going to read my Instagram posts about this trip to Cornwall, so you can join with me on this journey of something that happened, not recently, but in June 2021. I didn't make a video then, I just took pictures. I'm just going to read it for you to follow along. I do like writing on Instagram, so we're just going to go through some of the pictures. And we started by going past Stonehenge here. I don't know if you've been to Stonehenge. It's nice if you go there for solstice, like winter or summer solstice, but if you go normally, you can't get inside it and you see it from a distance and it's a bit disappointing. But this is a bad quality image because we were coming from the car. And after a few hours in the van, we arrived in Cornwall. And then we were on the beach and it was so lovely there. The weather was amazing, swimming in the sea. You can see my camera in my glasses here. We went to Tintagel, which was beautiful. This is a short video of all the sea here, and we could really hear the sea. These were some of the rocks. Tintagel was so lovely. We were camping, so we were doing all the cooking, and I love the whole communal thing in a kitchen. I really enjoy doing that, whether I'm at home or whether I'm camping. I just love all cutting stuff together. It's beautiful, cut up food. It's just lovely. Look at all that vegetable and the colours. And that was me with a Mackerel sky. I was at Kennack Sands. You just don't really see skies like this so often. I love that picture and just that beautiful sky. Cornish sky. And then there we are, having a campfire as well, because we can have fire pits there. And that was lovely, sitting around having fires too. So it's pretty idyllic, isn't it, when you're living in that kind of world. Oh, there we are at St Michael's Mount as well. We went there too. And this is the day when I went off on my own. Left all my friends and I just went off on this day. I always knew that one of the days I was going to go off and do my own thing for genealogy research and so on, but it did take a bit of an unexpected turn this trip, and I'm going to share that with you now through reading my Instagram posts. So here we go. So this is the bus stop in Cougar, or Cougar, don't know how you pronounce it. They don't do bus stops like this in London. Currently I'm enjoying the views from the upper deck. I'm on my way to Kresen Kernow in Redruth to see what I can dig out from the archives on my Cornish ancestors. And off I went. So here I am at Kresen Kernow. So my grandpa's grandmother, Elizabeth Johanna Passmore, was a Cornish woman, with her family being from Falmouth, Fowey, Goran, Mevagissey and Penryn. My grandfather's mother and sister were both named Elizabeth after her. It means my grandpa Will was a quarter Cornish, but I'm not sure even he knew, as Elizabeth emigrated to Australia before he was born, where she died. Her 2 surviving sons also emigrated to Australia. While her 3 surviving daughters stayed in England, her many descendants are therefore split between 2 continents. I found and visited great-great-grandmother Elizabeth's headstoneless grave in Melbourne when I was there, and now here I am, back at the Cornish Archives, Kresen Kernow, finding out more about her family. I feel like I've followed a story from one side of the world to the other and back again. Let's see what I uncover today. Tracking down the family backstory of my Cornish great-great-grandmother Elizabeth at Kresen Kernow, I've looked at these Quaker records. Her own grandmother, Elizabeth Osborne Bastian, whose birth is recorded in the Quaker birth registers for Cornwall in 1790. Quakers don't perform baptisms, but they record births, and her entry states that her parents were not in unity. This most likely means that one of her parents was not a Quaker, but as yet I'm not sure which one was and which one wasn't. I do know that the mother of this Elizabeth Osborne Bastian, yet another Elizabeth, Elizabeth Michell Osborne, was buried in the Quaker Burial Ground at Falmouth in 1822. Her burial, however, states she was not a member. I hoped these minutes of the monthly meetings would tell me more about who actually had become a Quaker. But with limited time in the archives and the old writing difficult to read, I've photographed the pages and I will look through them at home. I've always known that my grandpa Will was descended from some of the earliest Quaker families in 1600s Yorkshire, but this other unconnected Quaker line in Cornwall only surfaced last year. I'm not religious, but the Quakers recorded so much information in their records that you can learn so much about them and their lives. In the end, all most of us will become is a name recorded somewhere. I think our ancestors would like the thought of their future generations looking them up. On the way to St Austell. This is the Quaker Meeting House, their equivalent of a church in St Austell. It was built in 1829, so not where my ancestor Elizabeth Osborne Bastian's birth would have been recorded in 1790. That meeting house was on the other side of the road and was sold in 1828. It was so beautiful, this meeting house on this day. Look at the sky and all the stone along the sides. And there was the train was along the top, and as you were like coming down out the train station, you could sort of see down over to the meeting house. It's really nice reminiscing about this day, you know, because it was a lovely day. Right, then I'm on the bus. Next stop, Mevagissey. St Peter's Church in Mevagissey. All the long grass, look at that. Another beautiful day as well. I came here to the churchyard at Mevagissey to look for the grave of my 6 times great-grandparents, Edward and Catherine Michell, who died in the 1770s and were both buried here. They were the parents of Elizabeth Michell Osborne, who was buried in the Quaker Burial Ground at Falmouth. I know they're buried here from a headstone index, but the only problem is there are a lot of graves. I knew I had to find an old one, so I started looking for those of 18th century style amongst all the old stones, but no luck. They all seem to date from later on. So I took a break and did some sketching inside the old church. It was an interesting monument, that as well. I wonder whose monument that is. Interesting to find out about them, actually. I went back outside again and an old-looking tombstone caught my eye leaning against a pile of other gravestones. I walked over to have a closer look. And I can just remember walking towards this and identifying that these were older-looking stones. As I walked closer, I couldn't believe it as the word Catherine and the date 1772 came into focus. It was a bit of a whim coming here today, but I had gone and found the stone I was looking for. The inscription reads, "Here also lieth the body of Catherine his wife, who died the 16th day of July 1772, aged 58 years. You can see it there, look. Virtually all my historic lines are working class people who could never afford a headstone, so didn't leave a visible presence like this behind. So it was quite exciting to know I was touching a stone that my ancestors had also most probably touched, just as I was today. But where was her husband, Edward Michell's stone? I hoped it was the one lying behind it, so I pulled Catherine's stone up towards me and had a look. Sadly, it was a much later date. So wasn't his, however. As I turned to carefully lower Catherine's stone back down, unexpectedly facing me was another inscription. Edward's name had been carved on the other side, a double-sided tombstone. I'd found them both. The inscription reads, "Here lieth the body of Edward Michell, who died the 3rd of April, 1774, aged 73 years. Looks clearer than the other one, doesn't it? Look. My 6 times great-grandfather Edward was from a long line of Michells from nearby Gorran. He left a will and had some land and property which he left to his family. Previous researchers have done a lot of work tracing his Michell line backwards, and last year I was pretty amazed to see that his line could be traced back 1,000 years. It's incredible to get that far back outside of royal lines. Edward's ancestor, and therefore also my ancestor, is known because he was from Normandy and he came to England in 1066. His name was Michell de Bures and he fought at the Battle of Hastings. I love looking back at the people before me and imagining their worlds and their lives. But no matter what interesting or notable people we find in our heritage, it's still our own actions and what we do now that really matters." And then I made the return journey back to the Lizard Peninsula. I went back to the campsite and carried on having a lovely time with my friends in Cornwall.
Hi and greetings from the beach. We've been here for about an hour. We don't know how this works. We have no idea. That's it. That is it.
Going to the pub, drinking cider.
Go on.
Having fires. And then leaving the empty tent spaces where the grass had died, where our tents no longer were. It was such a fantastic trip. It really was. It was beautiful. And that day, and exploring my ancestors' roots in Cornwall was really special. And I won't forget that day. But that was a long time ago. And one of the things I said I was going to do that I haven't is to look at those records again, the photographs I took in the archives of the Quaker records, and seeing if it actually does mention any of my Quaker Cornish ancestors. So I need to extract them and get them down for us to have a look at. Let's go and find those records. These are all the pictures that I took that I'm now going to download. It's downloading now. It's funny how you sort of put things in a drawer. Well, it's not a drawer, it's in like Google Photos. And then you come back to have a look at it afterwards. But we're going to find out what is in these old records.